Hello, and welcome to the Law Deals Podcast, the podcast for legal professionals navigating the business of law firm partnerships, and law firm ownership transitions. I'm your host, Ed Alexander. Today, I'm excited to welcome Steve Fretzin, a true pioneer in legal business development. For over 17 years, Steve has been regarded as the premier coach and skills trainer on business development for attorneys, helping thousands of lawyers master what he calls sales-free selling. We're going to talk about that. Steve is the host of the highly rated Be That Lawyer podcast, a monthly columnist for Above the Law, and the author of 5 books on legal marketing and business development. His latest work, Be That Lawyer 101, Top Rainmakers, Secrets to Growing a Successful Law Practice, distills insights from over 600 interviews with some of the most accomplished rainmakers in the legal world. And interestingly enough, many of the people we've had on this podcast and that I'm friends with as well. What makes Steve's approach unique is his understanding that lawyers need practical, authentic strategies for business development, not pushy sales tactics. He is here to demystify business development, to provide guidance to lawyers around the world to lean into the business development side of law and its impact on the enjoyment of your firm as well as its salability. Steve, welcome to Law Deals.
Thank you, Ed. Happy to be here.
Well, this is going to be a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, you've devoted 17 years to working with lawyers in the business development area. So tell us, how did you get there? What drew your focus to the legal profession and really lawyers' business development skills?
I got into it by accident. I had built a fantastic business focused on entrepreneurs around the Chicagoland area where I'm from, website companies to financial planners. I even worked with a carpet cleaner, if you can believe that. And they all needed help in learning non-aggressive, non-pushy ways to do business development or sales. And I came up with the concept of sales-free selling, which we'll talk about later, and never had an idea in my head about lawyers needing business development coaching or training until the recession of 2008 and 9. And I started getting flooded with referrals from lawyers who were in-house, lawyers who were working at firms where their hours were cut, where they had just been let go and they had to start up their own thing, or they started with a new firm and they weren't going to get cut again. They knew that they needed to make business development and growing their own client base a priority. And so I waffled on it for about a year and a half. And I looked at my numbers and I saw, oh my God, 80%, 85% of my business are lawyers and law firms. And here I am teaching them the importance of specialization and niching down. I hadn't pulled the trigger myself. So I said, you know what, Steve, don't be a hypocrite. You know, you can do it too. And I've never looked back. 17 years. It's been the best decision I've ever made next to marrying my wife. And I'm thrilled every day that I get to work with the smartest, nicest, most wonderful people. And my father, being a former attorney, gave us lots and lots to talk about, which was just the icing on the cake.
That's fantastic. What a great story. Interesting that 2008, 2009, because I remember that distinctly. And you hit the nail on the head about that niching down or niching down, however you want to say it, and specializing, because it meant so much during that time period. I remember there was a point there where things were falling apart where I told people I could probably have taken a month off and nobody would have noticed. That was right at the height of it. But luckily, we made it through really having developed those relationships. All right. So you've mentioned sales-free selling. I've mentioned sales-free selling. Tell us what that methodology is.
So I figured out years ago, probably, in the 22, 23 years ago, that there was a problem with the existing sort of sales methodology of I have a service to sell and I'm going to get some people to buy it. You know, back in the old days, when you and I were coming up, right, there was not a lot of information. We had to sort of like the person and sort of take their word for it, whether they're selling legal services, accounting, selling cars, whatever. We didn't have any information. So if we liked someone and we thought they were good, and we'd buy from them. And then in many cases, we'd kind of like, shoot, what did I do? I just got taken for a ride, or you just didn't know until it was too late.
Yep.
And so what was happening was buyers, when they started getting information from the internet and other places, they really started running the professionals ragged, providing a lot of, getting free consulting. I mean, think about it as a buyer. I want to get information and I want to get price. And I want to do it all before I commit to anything, which makes perfect sense. However, that takes a lot of time from a seller to provide all of that. Not to mention, if I'm meeting as a buyer, 2 or 3 or 4 sellers of different, landscaping services, accounting services, all these people are investing time with me. And ultimately, I'm going to go with one of them or none of them. I'll just do it myself, or I'll just hold off on the project or whatever. So there's just a tremendous amount of time being put into this. And essentially, like, the buyer was out for the buyer, the seller was out for the seller, and it really wasn't working well or collaborative together. So I said, look, if there was a way to flip the script and say, hey, why don't we try to walk a buyer through a buying decision to find the perfect fit? And if it is, great, let's move forward and have this great relationship. If not, let's be okay with it. Not everybody is a fit and not everybody should be a fit. If I'm talking to a lawyer and the lawyer says, I'm not only am I broke, Steve, I'm in debt up to my ears. Well, they can't work with me. Now, can I give them books and can I give them videos and podcasts and be a friend? Of course I can, and I will. But ultimately, that's not someone that's going to be engaged. So why not figure that out early in the process, be a friend, be helpful, and not invest more and more time with people who aren't qualified? So it really has been eye-opening for me originally, and then for all the lawyers I work with, that they don't have to sell, they don't have to pitch, they don't have to convince. All they need to do is have a methodology that develops a stronger rapport, sets a table for the rest of the meeting, and ultimately we spend more time diagnosing and less time prescribing. And then when we do prescribe, we just know a lot more to know that it's something that we can actually help somebody with. So that's at the center and the core of what this is about, and why I came up with this model, different than, hey, Ed, let's go on a pitch meeting and let's go sell something.
So basically, there's a book by Dan Sullivan called "Be the Buyer," not
Be the Buyer.
Be the Buyer, right? So it seems it's similar. It's basically we're inviting you into our practice, right? And is there a fit? And we're going to do an analysis. And we talk a lot about this in the ABCD client arrangement, right? So it's know what your avatar client is and have that initial scope of who's going to fit with your practice from a whole host of different characteristics, right? So great, that's wonderful. So you're doing that up front, and then when they're coming, I guess in some way they're already predispositioned to work with you as an authority, and really it's about the consultative arrangement rather than trying to sell, right? Yeah, that's great.
Well, the interesting psychology that lawyers don't really understand or haven't been exposed to is we feel like we have to tell people why we're so great, or tell people why our firm is so wonderful, and solve their problems in the initial meeting to sort of blow their mind so that they say, oh, well, obviously I need to work with you. When in fact, it's the bedside manner, the quality of the questions, them feeling understood and listened to like a therapist would listen to a patient or a client, that really motivates them on an emotional level to believe and to want to work with a lawyer and feel that they can really trust someone enough to give them their business or their life to take care of. And so that's a different type of direction or angle than most lawyers really have tried or believe to be the case.
It's a great point. I mean, I had in my past a CPA who referred me one of his clients that was selling his business, and it was an interesting conversation because he told me up front, my client doesn't like lawyers and he doesn't want to really come see you, but I'm making him do this. And so I knew day one, it was going to be a rough meeting. But we got in there and same exact thing. I just started asking questions, what does the deal look like? What have you considered about this? What have you considered about that? Right. And by the end of the meeting, there was a complete change in approach to say, well, I really don't know the answer to a lot of these questions that that I was asking him. And therefore his approach was, I think I might be able to work with you, that kind of thing. So good methodology. Great. So I mentioned your book, you compile insights from 101 top rainmakers. So dig down and give us the top 2 to 3 most consistent traits or strategies that you've seen among the most successful rainmakers.
So it's been an amazing journey to not only interview all these top rainmakers from around the world, but then to take what they've shared and really break it down into the most valuable insights. And so that book has been transformative for many attorneys. If I had to, it's tough to break it down into a few parts, but number one is I think the top attorneys and rainmakers get that this is the business of law. And yes, you need to be a great attorney. Yes, you need to know the law and you need to take care of your clients and be ethical and all of that. However, it's the business of law, which means the word business is in there. So having a business development mindset and understanding the importance of client development, the importance of developing client relationships and loyalty, and making sure that you have sustainable ways of making and allowing business to come in so that you're not waiting by the phone, hoping that it rings, during good times and tough times. We want to be in control of that. So I think it's that idea that whether you're a solo or you're a big firm attorney, that it's you Inc. and this is your business. And if you want to run a business, you need clients. So having that mindset, I think came out in spades in this book from most of the rainmakers I interviewed. The other is it's very difficult to be successful and be a business developer if you don't have processes to follow, whether that's a process for business development, which, for example, something I teach, or it's having back end processes, right? Like, what are your automations? What's your systems? How do you work someone through a funnel or a pipeline all the way through? How do you, once they're engaged with you or your firm, what's the system or process that's automated or of how it's delegated and who's working on it? How do you communicate with the client? So there's all these pieces that if it's just winging it, and that's the idea for business development or the back end side, then those are all the big missteps. And that's how law had been run for so many years. And today you just can't run a successful law practice or firm without a lot of systems and processes in place and software and automation, everything that goes into it.
It's interesting because that is, I think, the old adage, right? Do good work and they will come. And unfortunately, that is prevalent still in the legal industry today. And obviously, those who control their book, whether that's a solo or even within a firm, really you control your destiny there. I want to hit one thing there that's mindset, right? When people are coming to you and working with you, are they already of the mindset that they are going to get out there, or do you have to push them over the edge? The reason I ask this is because I see a lot of times where people will, I'm going to do YouTube videos, or I'm going to do blogs, or I'm going to do something like that. But they're constantly held up by that internal voice that says, it's not good enough, or nobody wants to hear you, or this has been done before. Why are you doing it? Right? All these terrible voices in our head. So tell me about the mindset of your clients.
Well, I mean, you're bringing up a number of points, like from imposter syndrome to perfectionism to, attitude and behaviors. And so it's a lot to unpack, but ultimately, I'm very fortunate that the people that are going to reach out to me after hearing my podcast, after attending a workshop, after reading a book or anything that I've produced, is that they've already kind of gotten in their head that, this is something like getting an MBA. Like, I can't just get an MBA on my own. I need to go to school to get an MBA. I need to make an investment in myself and my future. And why not learn how to plan and execute and develop and utilize processes for something that I never learned in law school? That would be the equivalent of me as a non-lawyer saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm just going to start going to court and litigating. I've seen a couple Law and Orders, so, I should be okay.
Yeah,
right?
That's real.
My cousin Vinny, right? Probably not going to work out so well for me. So I think they have an attitude of, I need help. Now, the big switch is from I need help, or I want to go to the next level, because I'm working with attorneys with, $5 million books and they want to get to 10. So it's not all about like their pain or their problems. Sometimes it's about how do they even do better. And so I evaluate their strengths and what they do well. I evaluate their gaps and what they don't do well. But ultimately, their mindset is that they know they need to do this, but I have to put them in the right frame of mind to do it. So what I try to focus on, and this is going to go counter to what people believe, that there's behaviors, there's attitudes, and there's beliefs. All three of those drive results. But for many attorneys, what I have to do is I have to focus on their behaviors, developing good and positive habits of doing business development and making it as non-salesy and as easy to do as possible so that they start to do the behaviors, make them a habit, start seeing success. What do lawyers love? Evidence and proof, right? So once they start seeing that the emails they're sending out are getting them appointments, right? Or the way that they're running a meeting allows them to get business without selling, or any of the tools and systems I'm teaching, they start to really buy into it at another level. And then that's when I see things really open up for them. So I would say a lot of the mindset has to do with, let's get into some good and positive behaviors, which then impacts the attitude and the belief, and everything sort of follows in a positive cycle.
So it's a reinforcement of the behaviors. And then also, I would say that from a coaching perspective, the accountability is essential, right? So
there's a tremendous amount of accountability. Every week, I have my email flooded with activity journals that my clients have been keeping about all their weekly activity that they have to send to me on Friday. And if they don't send it to me on Friday, they get a firmly worded email from me. And if that doesn't take, I take them back to my agreement, which says, here's what I'm going to do for you, but here's what you need to do to be successful. You signed off on sending me this journal every Friday. It doesn't happen that often, Ed, but sometimes I have to pull out the big guns or put on the special pair of boots for certain attorneys. But I'm also understanding that when someone's going through a trial, or that when someone is ill and things are going to take a little bit of a slip, that we have the ability to bounce back and make up for it. And sometimes it's about how we bounce back that really defines success, not about, just about, being consistent, over time, just exclusively.
That's what they say about dieting, right? So if you fall off the wagon and you're on a diet, right, don't let that ruin the whole thing. Just move on. Just move on. So good.
Yeah.
All right. So, our podcast here is focused on transitioning firms and partnerships, right? So let's talk about how a strong business development foundation impacts the value and the salability of a law firm.
Yeah. So my father, Larry the lawyer, as I call him, he passed away last year, and he ran a firm for 40 years by himself. He had no systems. He had no processes. He had no documentation other than the files in the crawl space that he would make me as a teenager go in and get with a flashlight in my mouth. It was awful. And when he went to retire at 65, because that was his plan, he scrambled in the last 6 months to try to find some people to take it over, and thought maybe he could make a buck doing that. And he found a couple of knuckleheads who ran it into the ground in about 3 months.
Wow.
And so his business acumen, I think, was much lower than it would have been if I had worked with him, or if we had known each other back in a different way. So ultimately, what lawyers need to do today, and there's a number of things. Number one is you have to consider, if you don't have systems, if you don't have processes, if you don't have automation, you're putting yourself at a major disadvantage. Because the way that you develop business, the way that you manage the business that's in, the way that you follow through with people, all impacts the sustainability of a practice, number one. Number two is, as the lawyer, you may be the business. For me and my business right now, I am the business. Steve Fretzin is the business. Okay. So there's nothing for me to sell right now. That's going to change in 5 to 10 years. But for right now, I'm loving what I'm doing. That's fine. But for most lawyers who want to have a sellable practice, a sellable business, they need to start thinking about it, 5, 10 years ahead of time, put those processes in place, and then also build a team so that it isn't just you. You've got people that when you sell the business, you have a package that you're basically aligning with it. Maybe it isn't a three names of people. It's a name of a company, and you're selling the company and the systems and the client lists and all the processes and everything. And it's much more easy to hand over something like that when it isn't just about the lawyer, when it's about the firm, than it is selling a business that is just about the lawyer.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I like it, the black box analogy, right? And so ultimately it's a black box. The question is, does the box do anything, right? Because if you're the one, the one-armed paper hanger kind of thing, running around doing everything, then there's no box there. It's just you doing all the work, right?
Yep.
What's the biggest mistake that you see lawyers make when it comes to networking and business development, really word of mouth business development?
Yeah, it's a very simple answer. It's winging it. There are so many books and videos and podcasts and information on how to do networking at a level that's going to get you results. Yet most lawyers will spend 10 years handing out cards and attending events and going to conferences, and they have almost nothing to show for it. And if you start doing the math on all those hours, the hundreds of hours a year that some lawyers spend on marketing and networking and being out there, it's all flushed down the toilet because they never took the time to create a plan, to focus their energy, to focus their time, to follow a system that's been proven effective. And I'll give you a quick example. I'm going to a conference. I'm going to show up. I'm going to listen to what people say. I'm going to meet a bunch of people at breakfast and at the meals. I'm going to go home with some cards. I'm going to leave them on my desk. And 3 weeks later, I'm going to throw them out. That was 3 days of my life, non-billable, that are gone and I'll never see them again. I would like to suggest that this should be seen as a story. Every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when you miss one of those three parts of a story, the story is going to be confusing, right? My wife walks in on me and I'm watching a movie and it's 20 minutes in. She starts asking me questions right away. Who's that? Why does he hate her? All that. So when we think about attending a conference as an example, one example of hundreds is how are we planning to be effective at this conference? Who's on the list of who's going to be there? What meetings can we set up ahead of time? Who can we connect with on LinkedIn? How are we going to get things set up before we even walk out the door? Then when we're at the conference, how are we investing our time meeting with the right people, having coffees with the right people, drinks with the right people, the right parties, whatever it is, and focus on how are we developing relationships, asking questions, finding opportunities that could pay off. And then how quickly can we follow up after the conference to get appointments, to start trying to develop business from that conference? That's a system that will actually get you an ROI on that time and effort, and winging it across the board. Sometimes it works for attorneys that have a really great personality, or they get lucky, or they're just easy to talk to. For most of the lawyers out there, winging it is not a strategy that's gonna pay out.
Yeah, I think the problem, as I would characterize it, is that attending the conference and collecting those business cards is not developing a relationship. And all the things that you've mentioned really lead to that process of developing a relationship, because nobody's going to send you business without knowing really who you are and what you do and trusting you with their referrals. And so that show up scenario really is a waste of time and money. Absolutely. So if you were to put together a system, right, you were talking about a conference, right? But for lawyers, I believe that the most effective marketing method really is that word of mouth marketing method, right? And so kind of what we're typically looking at as we go out there, so it's identifying those that you want to have a relationship with, and it's reaching out, doing face-to-face meetings on a consistent, regular basis, and then communicating with them on a consistent, regular basis. And in two ways. One is you can do some email marketing to them because they will know you and actually read what you send. But also on the other side, I'm very much a fan of a print newsletter. I think print newsletters are very valuable, and more so, I think, because people aren't doing them now.
Yeah, you're going to be standing out in the crowd.
Exactly. Good. Yeah. All right. Well, so you've mentioned systems quite a few times, right? So, these systems that you're laying out, like the one you just did for the conference, how are you coaching your lawyer clients to create these systems? Clearly, they can't reside in their head. So what does that look like?
Well, if we're talking about business development, then I'm, handing them the keys to the kingdom from a standpoint of I've created a system that they can follow. Step 1, do this, say that. Step 2, do this, say that. And of course, we're going to customize it to personality, practice area, and a dozen other factors. But it's the idea that, I'll just give you a quick example. So you and I are meeting for the first time. You have an interest in engaging me for coaching, just as an example. Okay. I have a very specific system of how I'm going to start the meeting by developing rapport, building relationship. I'm going to lead into setting up a game plan of what we're going to do for the rest of the meeting. Mm-hmm. You're going to agree with that because it's going to be very collaborative, cooperative. I'm going to get into asking you questions about your law practice to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. I'm going to ask you a question. This is a great question. Ed, with regards to business development specifically, what are your main challenges, frustrations, and concerns?
Mm-hmm.
And then you tell me, oh, Steve, I don't have a plan for approaching it. I really want to do more speaking, but I haven't been able to get more speaking gigs. And when I do, I don't get any business from them. I'm finding myself doing random acts of marketing all the time. And ultimately, I'm only closing 2 out of 10 people that I meet when I do get, at bats. Well, what you've just handed me is like 5 challenges. That's like saying this is, if we want to go back to lawyering, this is, again, evidence that you may need my help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're not done there. Once I get that information, maybe I ask more questions and take a deeper dive on how is this wasting your time and what bothers you about it, or how is it costing you time, money, energy? How is it impacting your life not closing more business, for example? And ultimately, I want to qualify that. Are you committed to changing? Are you, in fact, Ed, the decision maker, or are there other people involved?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have the financial wherewithal? Do you have a budget? Have you thought about a budget for coaching? So there's some qualifying going on too. And ultimately, what I need to present to you is only what you need to see, hear, experience. So most attorneys are going to go in and they're going to wing it, and they're going to pitch. They're going to answer questions. They're going to give rates. They're going to do all this stuff just because the buyer's asking for it. I'm going to be in a position to teach a lawyer a system to use where they're in control of the entire meeting. The entire meeting is going to be about the other person, which is, by the way, their favorite subject anyway.
Right.
And the goal of it is to understand, are they qualified and are we a fit? And then if everything lines up, then we can present solutions, or we can present how we might work together. But it's diagnosis before prescription. And that's a much better system to follow than, again, winging it or just going in with the pitch.
Excellent. So diagnosis before system, and actually having basically a system for doing that, not just going in and saying, hey, I know this area of law, I can wing it.
Well, diagnosis before prescription. So, that's really, the key. Like if I go to see a doctor and I say my arm hurts, and he says, well, let's just cut that off. Well, thanks for the prescription, doc. I think I'll pass. Right. But if the doctor asks me a ton of questions and looks at my range of motion, pushes here, pushes there, and does an x-ray, then I'm in a much better position. The doctor's in a much better position to say, here, this is going to heal naturally. Take some anti-inflammatories and, let me know how it goes.
And go with it. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Excellent. So, I mean, on some level, this seems to me to be a way also to scale, because if you're developing these systems, then I can take an attorney, as long as they actually follow the system, and put them into that role. And so that's always been I guess where I get to is ultimately making sure that somebody follows the system has always been an issue for most business owners. So how do you overcome that issue?
Well, as far as having people follow a system?
Yeah.
Yeah. The goal that I'm trying to accomplish, and I think this is maybe what separates me from a lot of the coaches, which, by the way, I'm a big fan of coaching and I'm friends with most of the lawyer coaches around the country, is that I'm teaching a class to make sure that not only do they learn these systems, but they internalize them and can demonstrate to me by teaching the class along with me and role playing that they have this inside of them, so that they can make it a sustainable, regular part of, whether that's networking, running a client meeting, anything and everything that I have systems for. They should be able to internalize in a way where they can do it. And then they can actually teach people at their firm if they want. I've had a number of attorneys that have taught hundreds of associates or dozens of associates what they've learned from me, so that they can help, grow the firm. Ultimately, though, Ed, what it comes down to, people can learn systems for these things. They have to want to learn, and they have to want to be coachable, and they have to be motivated to grow business. That's not for all attorneys. Some attorneys want to just knock out work and go home at the end of the day, and that's okay for them. Other attorneys see the forest through the trees and say, you know what, if I don't have my own clients, I don't have control, I don't have freedom, I don't make my own, I don't get to say what I do with my time in my life. And they're going to be the ones that are going to want to leverage a system and make it repeatable. But that's the difference, is like internalization versus reading a book, hearing a good idea, but then not executing on it. It kind of fades away.
Yeah, the coachability and the willingness to implement, really kind of what you're talking about there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good. So your podcast, tell me about your podcast.
Oh man, I love my podcast. It's 520 episodes in. I've interviewed top rainmakers, top legal experts in every subject you can imagine. And it's, for me, it's been amazing on a couple levels. Number one is the number of relationships that I've built. You must feel that same way too.
Yeah.
Running your own podcast, the people you get to meet, the relationships you develop are unbelievable. And so I built this amazing, like group of resources that I have. If somebody needs automation help, if they need websites, if they need anything, like I'm a great person to talk to. And then the other thing is just from a brand building standpoint, the idea that I'm, creating such amazing content that's helping the industry, get all this great content, and in the form of audio, in the form of video, and even in the form of what I call blogcasts, where we take the transcript and we truncate it down into an article.
Yeah.
That's what gave me the idea behind the book, is that if I have all this great content and I'm keeping it to myself, or I'm piecemealing it out, what if I take it and I put it all in one place, and then I have that to sell? Wow, what a great experience. So it's just been an absolute dream. And I just can't imagine not having a podcast after running one for over 5 years.
I love the book. I bought the book. I looked over the book. I really enjoyed it. So there's a lot of really good content in there. So I would recommend it to anybody who's listening to the podcast here to do that. So now, thinking about those successful attorneys, because this will be a really difficult question for you, right? Because there's so many of them that were both in the book and on your podcast. What's the one piece of advice that has been shared, maybe multiple times, maybe only one time, but that stuck with you and really made an impression on you?
So there's an individual, his name is Jerry Madman. He's over at Dwayne Morris. He's, 30, 40 million, maybe $50 million book of business. I mean, we're talking about, cream of the creme. And he shared something in the podcast that is not for everybody, but it made a real impact on me. And I've helped a lot of my attorney clients who struggle with they're the name on the door. Mm-hmm. And they can't get rid of clients because all the clients, this was my dad's problem too. Everybody wanted Larry and everybody wants Jerry. He's the guy. You got to get the guy.
Just an aside, Steve, you can't do $40 million of business and be the guy.
You can't be the guy at 40. You can't be the guy at 5 million.
Right,
I mean, you really need to consider one of two approaches. Number one is the idea that you need to have a lieutenant, someone that is working on your team, that's going to handle the calls, that's going to run the team, that's going to make everything work to allow you to be out continuing to develop business. Michael Jordan doesn't belong on the bench. Michael Jordan belongs on the court. And when Michael Jordan, is being asked to basically, hey, can you sit on the bench and encourage people? No, he's got to be outscoring 50 points a game.
Right.
So we need to consider, and he shared in great detail in a couple of my episodes, how he developed a second and what that person, that lieutenant, does for him, and that allows for him to continue to build 40 to 50 to 60 and above as he continues to do it. But I think lawyers are so locked in on what the clients want. They don't think that there's a transferal of trust that can occur when you say, look, you're getting me. More importantly, you're getting my team. We work together to make sure that your case and your matter and your company is handled in a way that's going to get the best results and the most efficient way. And I'm still the quarterback, but ultimately I need the rest of my team involved in this to make sure that everything works perfectly and more efficiently than, do you want me doing at, $1,200 an hour, the stuff that should be done at $400 an hour? Of course you don't, right? We need to look at this as a team. And so that's something that not only resonated with me, but it's been something that I've been pushing all of my Rainmaker clients to say, look, you have to stop taking on all these clients and you have to stop taking on all these calls, these late night calls where they're panicking. They can only talk to you. They need to be delegated down to people who can absolutely handle those calls and allow you to sleep at night and focus on growing the business. And that really struck a chord with me.
Great, fantastic advice. And a lot of attorneys don't want to give that up, at least in the solo and small firm world. because there's a hero mindset that goes on. And it's, I gotta be the person, right? And what you said, they come to me, but they really don't need to come to you, right? And the first level of that is get rid of everything that's non-legal, right? You shouldn't, as an attorney, you should not be doing anything that doesn't require. If they're calling you about what's the process, what's the status, all of these kinds of things, boy, that's the red flag right there. That's the number one way you can get control of your time, is to avoid that. And then the second piece of it is get some attorneys who can then interface as well. The team approach really is, for the most part, liberating, right? And it gets you to that point where you can enjoy your practice finally.
Well, and it goes back to what you asked earlier, Ed, which was, how do you set up a business for sale? Well, you get yourself out of being the guy or the gal or whatever, and you have a team approach, and everybody has their job, and you're selling now the team, as opposed to selling you, which isn't going to be worth anywhere near as much.
Right.
Because you're going to be out of the picture at some point, right?
You definitely will be out of the picture. Right. You're leaving your practice. You're either leaving it horizontally or vertically, but you're definitely leaving your practice.
Right on.
So, okay. So for attorneys who want to dive deeper into your methodology, where should they start?
An easy place to start is to go on Amazon and grab. I've got 5 books: Sales Free Selling, The Attorney's Networking Handbook, Legal Business Development Isn't Rocket Science, and then most recently, Be That Lawyer, 101 Top Rainmakers, Secrets to Growing a Successful Law Practice. So picking up any one of those books, I think, will be super helpful. I think you'll get a really good feel for me and the way that I approach clients, the way I approach business development with lawyers, is check out my podcast, Be That Lawyer. That's easy. And if you ever want like a 30-minute just sort of evaluation, it's sometimes hard, Ed, to read the label from inside the bottle. Mm-hmm. And so lawyers that take 30 minutes to meet with me allow me to evaluate what they're doing well and where there's money on the table. And in some instances, Ed, it's amazing, but I find millions of dollars just piled up on a table, and they're walking around it all the time, not walking into it. And it's incredibly eye-opening to have someone that has this much experience listening to you and trying to understand where your time and money and energy should be spent, and it ends up being different from where you've been investing it. So Fretzin.com is my website. I'm all over LinkedIn. If you type my name in on LinkedIn, so very easily found.
Yeah, and Steve, I think that last point that you made is so important. I talked about the accountability in coaching, but the other part of coaching is what we as lawyers provide to our clients, and that is an unbiased third-party view that you just cannot have when you're, as you said, inside the bottle trying to read the label, right? Yeah. So really important stuff. Steve, thank you for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed our conversation today.